Oh, this Necro actually does damage. Go away, Barb. Is this illogical? It's like some damage over time, Necro. Wow, it does damage. It's crazy how much a dot can do.
Hey guys, Lord Sora here. Started this video with a different fashion this time. Recently got to test my damage on Rob's immortal barb build. Special thanks to him. He was streaming and checking out the PvP, so I asked if I could join and test my damage on his immortal barb. As you guys can see, this build can totally shred. But yeah, super excited to share this one with you all. Quite proud of this new theory crafting we came up with that actually helped us put the Necromancer on top again. Maybe not on top, below barbs, but especially in PvP. Now I feel like we have a chance to put up a decent fight against most classes out there. In the video, Rob mentions how much of a dot can do. Yes, it does look like we are doing a dot damage with our Shadow Pulls and Shadow Necromancer. However, that is no longer the case anymore. We are actually not doing any kind of dot damage. Most of our damage is coming from pet and X-File procs, so we are no longer a damage over time build, which it will all make sense when I go over this guide with you guys. The season started sort of rough for us. In fact, I have put Necromancer as C tier based on first week of PvPing. We have lost a lot of damage to our Shadow Wave build, and Shadow builds in general doesn't have the same damage over time potential anymore due to losing Thibaultsville uptime, Prey of the Week, Flowing Wains, and just a bunch of other things in the current meta, especially other classes getting so much more tankier. So we had to think outside of the box, and thankfully we came out with this build, and it really changed the meta, changed the Season 3 for us, giving us some kind of an hope to play and be really strong with Necromancer in Season 3 again. Open world, free for all, we still have some major disadvantages, which will make sense later in the video as I talked more about the build idea and how it works. We are relying on fireflies, and when the mobs around, when the multiple enemies around, your burst might be divided between mobs and other players that you may find it takes time for you to set up and to get the kills. So if someone is fighting you like a rat, running into pack of mobs, don't play their game, let them man up and come to you and fight. Rotate the fight the way you like it, control the battlefield with your corpses, control the fight, choose where you fight, and then you should have a lot more success with this build. Before we dive in, let me give you guys a bit of background and how this theory crafting happened. This season in PvP is all about insane amount of CC and pet doing the dirty work for you. So we're looking for two things. How can I stay in mist as much as possible, as well as buff my pet's damage? Mist cooldown is reduced. As you know, we have higher lucky hit chance and the more instances of damage to proc the Decrypify. And the pet's damage is all about increasing attack power. So these things considered, we went back to our roots, and idea always stayed in the corner of my mind since Season 0, Army of the Dead, to craft this build. Alrighty, let's jump into the gear. We're initially running Shaco, not a must-have, but important to get more ranks to Mist and more CDR. If you don't have Shaco, you can run regular helmet here with explosive mist aspect, and you would run Ghost Walkers on boots in place of explosive mist. Also, if you do not have Shaco, make sure to run +4 ranks to mist on pants. Chest, we are running Embalmer aspect. We generate tons of corpses in this build, and as we consume that, we are able to create tons of blood orbs to heal and sustain challenging fights. Gloves, we are running Grasping Veins. Crit damage do not add much value due to the crit cap. However, the crit chance is nice to have, more damage, more burst via crit chance. So we are running this on the gloves. We are running Aspect of the Might on pens to have even more DR and survivability. On boots, we are running explosive mist, very important. And like I mentioned previously, if you do not have Shaco, you can run this on the helmet and run Ghost Walkers on boots instead. Amulet, one of the most important aspects of the build, blighted aspect. This is how we do big damage. Without this build, we'll hit like a wet noodle. Rings, we have X-Fells, additional burst potential to Fireflies, to not only just to rely on the pet, but still be able to dish out some more damage from our shadow pools as well as decompose. And we are also running Sacrilegious Ring. Like I mentioned, there's so much CC and hard casting is not much of a thing in this season, as we try to spend most of the time in mist form. This auto tendrils and auto corpse explosion helps a ton to dish out more damage while we are still being in mist form. Focus, we are running Blood Soaked. This adds another instance of damage while we are in mist, hence helps with mist cooldown reduction, as well as helps us still keep our movement, where I think it's very important to be fast, otherwise you will be there like a sitting duck, enemy controlling the whole flow of the fight. As a main hand weapon, I would almost say that it is a must-have. Doombringer just adds insane amount of survivability, and if you follow my planner, it should get you around 45k HP or so depending on your gear, which is huge to survive versus multiple enemies fighting open world, and it saves you time to go into your mist form if you mess up your rotation. If you do not have Doombringer, you can run Wand and potentially put the elements aspect on it to buff your firefly damage for 30%. Regarding gems on the armor, I will like to take rubies, but if there are a lot of firewall sorks in the lobby, you definitely need to run dot gems. So I suggest having gear for both scenarios. Makes a massive difference, especially against firewall sorks. On the jewelry, we are running skulls to hit armor cap. We'll be going over this more later in the video in more detail, but I designed our Paragon in a way that it helps us reach resistance caps without having to rely on gem slots on our jewelry, so this really helps us min-max defensively. Let's talk about the skill tree a little bit. We are initially taking Decompose, which helps us proc the Might aspect for more damage reduction, as well as for offensively to X-Falls for more damage. Have to take additional passives here. They are okay, not really useful, but have to spend those points to move up to the next tree. And the next tree, we're taking Healed Flesh here to generate more corpses. Next, we're taking Mist, putting all the points we can, the Corpse Explosion as well as the Grim Harvest. Only 1 point there because we don't really spend that much resource in this build to get to the Field by Dead. Since we are consuming corpses all the time, it adds a bit more damage boost. Next, we're taking Decrepify and all the surrounding passives to have those damage boosts. The next three, we're taking Gruesome Mending, which is very important in my opinion for healing buff to our potions as well as our blood orbs. We also take Necrotic Carapace, something we didn't take before because of the lack of corpse generation. However, with Army of the Dead, we are generating so many corpses in this build, so it helps us build more Fortify uptime. It's not a bad to take advantage of this passives anymore. It's because we can generate so many corpses that can help us generate more Fortify. Then we take Reaper's Pursuit for speed, as well as Crippling Darkness for more CC duration. Due to not really relying on shadow damage, our dot pressure via terror or gloom passives are no longer relevant. That's right, when people see a necromancer, they think that we're doing damage over time now. That is no longer the case for this season. We only rely on the shadow damage to proc our shadow blight, so we don't need terror or gloom passives anymore in this build. Next, we're taking our ultimate Army of the Dead with Prime Army of the Dead passive. No need to take the last note of this due to us not having any minions. Lastly, we take our key passive, Shadow Blight, as well as Standalone and Memento Mori passives. For pet powers, Seneschal, it is pretty standard setup. We're running Tempest Governing Stone with Dusk, Evernight, and Breaking Support Tuning Stones. Dusk is very, very important. It helps us keep our Shadow Blight stacks going, as well as Breaking Support, giving us permanent vulnerability and removing enemy barriers if they have any. Evernight, a similar idea, reduce our mist cooldown a little bit more there, increase the Decrepify ranks to get a little bit more damage reduction. On the right side we have our classic Firefly setup. This is where most of our damage is coming from. Seeking support, multi-shot, and piercing. Without any of these stones, Fireflies do not really work effectively, so we need to take this setup as a whole. I won't be covering the node by node Paragon board here in the video. However, the build planner link is in description where you can find all this information listed there, including Paragon. Especially design the Paragon board for free-for-all open world PvP to have more survivability as well as damage against most opponents. One thing I want to provide is to help you with your Paragon that you're hitting all those important caps. For example, armor cap this season is 9200, as well as you need to cap on all the resistances almost because of the pet doing fire damage and lightning damage as well. So you need to definitely have 70% across the board, and because you will also possibly run into poison rogues. So without having to run any resistant gems on the jewelry, if you follow my Paragon board, you should be good to go on those things, hitting both armor cap and the resistance cap. The build planner is, as I said, linked in the below, but I also posted the DR buckets you probably should target via gear. I included all the desired affixes on the gear that I prefer to run, that you can find those in the build planner as well. I personally am not there yet, still trying to find those gear pieces, but just sharing them with you guys so you can start working towards them as well. I hope this video was helpful. Wanted to quickly go over everything that is mandatory and important while trying to keep things concise and short. Let me know if you have any questions, comment below, like and subscribe. Really appreciate all your support here in the channel. My Discord server and Twitch links are in the description. Come hang out and let's have a good time in Season 3 PvP. Until then, Lord Sora here. I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.